Hello, and welcome to Veterans Question Time. My name's Daniel Saunders, and I'll be taking your questions and putting them to York Normandy veteran Ken Cooke. Now, we received quite a few questions from Ryan, a school pupil from the York area. I think he sent in a record number of questions. So, without further ado, here we go. So Ken, thank you very much for being with us today. The first question is as follows. Did you go on the beaches at Normandy, or did you stay behind in a boat?
No, I actually went on the beaches. We landed at 10 to 8 in the morning, Tuesday morning, on D-Day.
Were you already a soldier in the war, or was Normandy your first experience of war?
First experience, because I was called up in December 1943, and we went up to Richmond in Yorkshire, to the barracks there, where we started our 6 weeks basic training. And from then on, we travelled to different parts of the country, doing manoeuvres and patrols and different things, ready to become a soldier sort of thing, to get the experience from older people, older soldiers who were in the regiments. And they gave us some, talks about different things. And then we did no training whatsoever as regards landing on the beaches in Normandy. A lot of people think they had a lot of training, but we didn't. And there were thousands like me. I mean, you've seen films of soldiers training for the invasion, crawling on the barbed wire with live fire going over the top of them. We had nothing like that. We just had our basic training and what we learned going around the country to different camps. And we finished up down south, just outside Southampton. Then a couple of days down Southampton area, and we went to do it into the Southampton itself to board our ships that were waiting for us.
Can you describe your living quarters on the boat?
The living quarters? Oh, we were down in the bowels of the ship. There was like bunks on the bottom deck. Just like ordinary bunks, rows of bunks where you put your kids, and then you slept on that bunk. That was our accommodation.
I'm just going to skip forward to one of the later questions, Ken, as I think here's a good point to introduce it, given we're talking about the Channel crossing. What would a typical meal have been on the boats?
A typical meal? Well, we went on the boat a long time, but from what I can remember, we had, say, for breakfast, Scotch porridge, maybe a sandwich of some description, and a mug of tea. For a main meal, with potatoes and some kind of meat sort of thing, something more or less thrown together.
What did you have to wear and carry with you once you arrived at the beaches?
We had we had a small pack which carried our dining utensils in, and what else was there? One or two other things, like a pair of socks, pair of clean socks. I'm trying to think. Soap and a towel, if you could squeeze them in. I know one or two odds and ends that you thought you might need. You had 2 pouches on the front, which you had to carry a Bren gun magazine, 2 Bren gun magazines, which you handed over to the Bren gunner when he ran out of his ammunition. And you had I think, one grenade or 2 grenades in the other pouch. And you had what they call a frog on the back of your belt on your equipment, which you had your bayonet. What else was there? I think that's about it. What you had to carry ashore. Oh, and your rifle.
If you knew what you were about to experience, what advice would you have given yourself?
I wouldn't have gone. Put it that way. I didn't know what I was going to get into. No, I was very apprehensive as we were going towards the beach, because we heard all the explosion and what have you. And we'd never experienced anything like it before. It was, well, you've seen films of the beaches, and it was horrific. The noise, the explosions, what have you. So we never experienced anything like it. Even if you had when you were at home, when you were younger, the thunder used to frighten you. You used to crawl under the kitchen table to get out, to try and get away from the thunder. Just an ordinary thunderstorm. But this was 1,000 times worse on the beach with all the explosions.
What have been your lasting memories of what you saw?
Well, the battleships and the rockets that were going into the beach. That's one of the memories. Some of the other memories I don't want to talk about. From my experiences, we got off lightly when we landed on the beach, because we landed in about 6 inches of water. And the other chaps were up to the necks in water. In some cases, in quite a lot of cases anyway. And when we realised what had happened, and we heard stories of chaps jumping off the ramps on the landing craft and going into about 20 foot of water with all the gear on. So, and those kind of stories as well.
How long after Normandy did you arrive back in York?
Well, on July the 4th, I was wounded, and then I was shipped back to England. I was in hospital for 5 months up in Scotland. Then I had 2 weeks leave. That's when I went back to York.
Just leading on from that, as Ken Smith said to me once, D-Day wasn't just one day. People have a habit of focusing on that one day because of its significance, but of course the fighting continued after that. Of course you were injured, and you returned to the UK, and then went out to the continent to fight again. When you went over the second time, at what point did you return to England after that?
Let's see, March 45. I was sent back shell shock. Went to a hospital down south, and I was demobbed from that hospital. And I went home, let's see, just after VA Day. I got home,
Here we have a question submitted by Stephen. I've just finished reading Ardennes 1944 by Anthony Beevor, a very good read about the Battle of the Bulge. My question is, where were the York Normandy veterans during this battle? What did they hear about the battle? Was there a concern that Hitler's last offensive was going to drive the Allied armies back to the coast?
Well, we didn't hear about that while we were in Normandy. Let's see, this would be when I was in hospital, when the Battle of the Bulge was on. Because it was winter time when the Battle of the Bulge was on. And I was in hospital in Scotland up till Christmas 1945. 44, rather. That's right, 44.
Here's another question we had submitted. I think a question that I would like to ask is around where they, the York Normandy veterans, went after D-Day.
After D-Day, we advanced inland, and I think the first village was Crepon, a place called Crepon. And the 6th Battalion had gone through Crepon, and there were still a few Germans left in the village, and we chased them out of there and carried on. And the next village was I think it was Cruelly, a place called Cruelly. And we went straight through there, and the 6th Battalion cleared up after us. And we edged up to in, between battalions. One went through the village and we cleared it out, and we went through a village and they cleared it out, and we edge hopped that way as we went through these villages. And we advanced, I think it was 9 mile, and we were the furthest regiment on D-Day. We went the furthest, and we had to come back so far because we'd advanced too far and too quick. And it appears that the Navy spotters who were spotting for the naval guns had seen some movement in our area, and they thought there was Germans, so they sent a couple of shells from the battleships over towards us, so we had to pull back out, just in case. Now we settled in for the night when we pulled back, maybe a couple of miles or so, and we settled in for the night, and that was the first day on D-Day.
I was just wondering, Ken, after the first day, what were your thoughts? As the initial invasion had been a success and you'd secured a foothold, was there a sense of the dread of the fighting that was to come?
No thoughts whatsoever. I tell you what, we settled in our German slit trenches. We never dug any slit trenches that first night because the Germans, we used their trenches for the night. And the following, in the evening, we had what we call a stand to, and everybody had to be on the guard for 2 hours, what they call a stand to event. And then there was people that was on guard all night, and the others got down in the slit trenches, and we had our tea, sort of thing, our meal before we settled down for the night. And somebody in one of the radio trucks. They had some orchestra playing from a nightclub in London. So we had music to listen to.
Were you fearful of a counter-offensive on that first night?
No, I don't think so, Daniel. Because we were watching the Germans trying to bomb the harbour. We could more or less see the harbour from where we were, you know, the lights over the harbour. During the night, they had what they call Montgomery's moonlight. And they had every searchlight on the area lit up the sky. And it was just like daylight with all these searchlights on. And we saw some of the explosions on the beach where the Germans had bombing the beach. But anyway, we were that tired because we'd been on the move all day. And we were more or less dropped into the trenches and had our tea and listened to that music we were telling you about. Then we went to sleep.
So thank you, Ken. There are all the questions we had submitted, and I must say I have a few questions of my own based on more recent events. First of all, can you tell me a bit about the stained glass window at St Lawrence's Church in York?
Yeah, we went to see it. It came about with we discussed having somebody said, what about having a window in one of the churches in York? This was quite a while ago. Anyway, Nick Beerby, he sorted some things out, you know, and he was very busy. And he organised the collections for the window. So we're going to get a window put into one of the churches in York. And some of we didn't want it in the Minster because there's too many stained glass windows in there as it was. So we tried another church in town, and they wanted too much money for it. And then Nick went to St Lawrence's, and there's some discussions there, and they said they would put a window in their church. And Nick arranged for the stained glass person who did the stained glass in York. She had a studio just outside York. Her name was Helen Walker. She's very well known. You know David Hockney? He had the window in Westminster Abbey. She did that.
It's certainly a big name then, yeah.
Yeah, so she's well known, like, you know. Anyway, I think it's Channel 5. We're doing a program because it's called Made in Britain, this program. And they were doing this program about stained glass windows, what went into the work of it. And Ellen was being filmed with her doing her work on stained glass. And at the same time, Nick went up to see her about getting a window made for St Lawrence's Church, our window. And the people that were filming Helena at her work, Nick said to him, well, I'm going to get this window done. And she'd already made a drawing of the window. And these people said, and Nick says, wouldn't it be a good idea if we could get the veterans examining their window and seeing how it was made? And these television people said, oh, what a good idea. Well, a bit later on, they were invited up to the studio by Helena to see how the window was, how she was progressing with the window. And we went up, and the people were filming Eleanor at work, and we got in on the act as well. And then we went down to the church when they put the window in the church. We went down to the church and they were filming that, and we were in the film and that. And Nick says he said he'd been in touch with a chap who was doing the filming, and the film will be out shortly. We don't know when. We don't know the date, but Nick's going to get the date. So he thinks it'll be somewhere around about June, I don't know. So that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Daniel, it is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And everybody says the same. We've had some... Nick's got somebody to make some bookmarks with a picture of the window on the bookmarks. And he also has some cards, like a birthday card. And the picture is on the front of the card. And the inside of the card is blank. So you can send a message to anybody, sort of thing, you know. And there's also like a bigger version of the window on a strip of card, like a souvenir thing, you know. And we've got them, and it was sold quite a lot. And a member of the scooter club, he has friends in America, and he's told them about the window, and he sent some cards over to them. So I don't know how many offers we'll get from America for the cards and what have you, but they're selling quite well, is all the cards and the bookmarks.
And on to our next point, Ken, and I think you knew this question was coming. What's it like to have a Hornby train with your name on it?
Oh, it's great, isn't it? You know, what a surprise was that? It was as a bigger surprise as what we were when we had the train up at Merton. You know, when they named the train up there, which I didn't know anything about at all. That was a big surprise. This Hornby thing's a big surprise as well.
Thank you, Ken. Your answers have been enlightening as engaging as ever, and thank you as well to all of you who submitted questions. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Veterans Question Time. Thank you and goodbye.